Welcome to Rumbo Minero, where I, Jorge Leon, co-host with Cesar Campos. Cesar, how are you? How are you doing today, Cesar? We look forward to hosting this program together.
A pleasure, Jorge, always.
It is imperative that we urgently tackle the invasion situation in Conga. The increasing presence of illegal miners is deeply concerning. Questions arise regarding the response of the government. It seems that the illegal miners, just smoked it and entered Conga, where mining supposedly wasn't allowed, which is false. So really worrying, Cesar. And we are also going to have Jorge Soto, right?
Correct, yes. Who is also the president of the Mining Engineering Chapter of the College of Engineers of Peru, to talk about the outlook, which is also anticipated in the electoral debate about mining in the year 2026.
And Rosa Bartra, I forgot to mention, Rosa Bartra, the former congresswoman and lawyer, is going to speak with us regarding this complex issue concerning the invasion of Conga and the illegal mining operations. Well, I also wanted to mention that we have José Gonzáles, our international editor for Rumbo Minero magazine, will bring us from Wall Street in New York the topic of mining companies in 2025 and venture capital in mining. And on the other hand, in our Mining and Society segment led by Iván Arenas, he will talk to us about Trump and copper in Peru. So there is a lot of very interesting information about Peruvian and global mining. Next up, don't miss out on our presentation of the report compiled by Rumbo Minero. Take it away, please.
During the current week, Prime Minister Ernesto Alvarez raised concerns about the unauthorized extraction of gold by informal miners in regions designated for the Conga Gold Project, owned by Neumann Corporation, which is located in the Cajamarca region. It is worth remembering that this mega project, whose estimated investment amounted to $4.8 billion, has been stalled for more than a decade. Although the project obtained approval for its environmental impact study in 2010, a sector of the population, mainly farmers, they opposed the development due to concerns that it could contaminate the water sources critical for agriculture and livestock in Cajamarca, posing a risk to the community. Between the years 2011 and 2012, this opposition led to massive protests under the slogan "Water Yes, Gold No," which culminated in the project's halt. Currently, parts of Conga are facing illicit mining activities where gold is being extracted in a harmful, unsustainable manner by unauthorized miners, polluting soils and rivers with mercury, at the expense of the environment and the exact communities that originally resisted the initiation of the project by a reputable and internationally recognized corporation. This scenario is explained by the absence of formal mining in the area. As Premier Alvarez pointed out, the lack of legal operations with high environmental and social standards ends up creating space for illicit activities that operate without any form of control. Similar incidents were also documented during that period involving major multinational companies like Southern Copper and First Quantum, shedding light on a prevalent problem in the industry. MMG on illegal miners. On this topic, Rumbo Minero consulted the former Minister of Energy and Mines, Carlos Herrera de Descalzi, who was emphatic in pointing out that the entry of informal miners into Conga shows a recurring pattern of state weakness. For the former official, what is happening in Conga is not an isolated incident. However, it is not a new occurrence, but a recurrence of a familiar trend seen in previous projects that were stopped because of lingering social issues. In the same vein, Karina Garay, legal spokesperson for the Observatory of Legal Mining, it has been cautioned that the ongoing situation in Conga highlights the significant repercussions of the state's absence and the absence of a coherent strategy to encourage formal mining activities, responsible and with stringent environmental standards. Garay stressed the urgency for the state to take immediate action by upholding the rule of law and removing the illegal miners who have encroached upon the area. It is vital to enforce eviction measures swiftly, in addition to applying the corresponding sanctions. Finally, the representative of the Illegal Mining Observatory warned about the international impact that the advance of illegal mining will generate on Peru's image. He pointed out that the fact that a high percentage of the gold leaving the country has an illegal origin detracts from credibility with investors, and that encouraging an informality that conceals illegality ends up scaring away formal mining investment and seriously harming the country.
Appreciate the significant and intriguing report you provided. Please allow me to introduce our esteemed guest, Rosa Bartra, a distinguished lawyer and former congresswoman. Rosa, how are you today? We're delighted to welcome you to Rumbo Minero.
Jorge Cesar, good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, let's cut right to the chase. We have listened to the Premier mention that Conga, it has been invaded by what he has called illegal miners. Well, by invading, they are already illegal. And then And it's a shame, isn't it? Because it has also been a project that was extremely vilified, a project that was blocked by many NGOs, and a whole issue that we already know. But now it turns out that it was said that mining couldn't be done in Conga. And it turns out that now unlawful miners are able to carry out the task.
Conga, I believe, leaves us with a very painful lesson. A project that had all the permits, that it had been structured and planned out, and that he had also managed to get the state to open the door for him. And now it ended up paralyzed for years. For years. And the state withdrew Jorge from there. What happens when the state withdraws? There is a principle. The space you leave is space that gets occupied. And if the state pulls back, what has moved in is the criminal economy. The illegal mining, which is illegal from every single point of view, because it goes against the environmental standards that they, the community, or the mentioned NGOs were supposed to uphold, thus compromising their mission and integrity. So we are facing a serious problem of loss of territorial control, where there is now pollution and violence.
But Rosa, let's put ourselves in a broader context. A few weeks ago, President Trump, Donald Trump of the United States, declared something that impacts Peru from different angles, but Peru is considered a crucial ally in his country's strategic partnerships. No NATO member. And there is talk of the geopolitics precisely of minerals, a geopolitics in which Peru is going to play an extremely important role. And Cajamarca, where Conga is located, mainly because there are investment projects worth more than $20 billion stalled there. So, if we put it, visualizing the issue of Conga in this context is essential for determining how to progress in the absence of state authority to enforce order. It is crucial for moving forward effectively. In what ways do you imagine that a future government, after undergoing reforms to regain lost authority, would be able to achieve this goal successfully?
Hey, Cesar, it's important to have a competent state, competent who furthermore exercises the governance, ensuring that the state organisms fulfill their duties, OEFA, MINEM, ANA, all of the entities that are involved and are able to
Even
work.
the subnational governments, forgive me for saying it, because that's precisely where the problem lies.
Certainly working together in a robust technical coalition for continuous monitoring and supervision. Our focus is on ensuring the community's emotional experience, as we must acknowledge and address the sentiments of the population. Ignoring this has been a critical error. You can go to neither one extreme nor the other. The community must feel not only heard but also benefited. And to the extent that sustained oversight is achieved in such a way that you don't have interdictions in quotes only for the chamber, and in this strategic alliance where the state is present and there are real incentives for the community, I believe that this investment of 20 billion can circulate and generate the benefit that the population needs.
How do foreign investors view us in terms of perception regarding our country's status towards reforms? The fact that, well, they are encroaching upon other territories, haven't they? These kinds of problems have caused some other concessions to suffer. So, well, the truth is that if we don't have clear rules, which sometimes we don't, we add bureaucracy, bureaucracy, bureaucracy. And now we are adding something which is quite dangerous, because not long ago there was also talk about idle concessions. Isn't that right? Something that people really, you have to understand it the right way, right? When a concession is made, there is a first stage, a second stage, and a third stage, because it is a big project. And it's not that there's a concession, an idle part. It's all part of a huge project, a massive investment of billions of dollars. So when you see that they start to invade, that it's not something, well, good for investors. Speaking of the world's biggest investors in mining, right?
Without a doubt, Jorge, the topic you brought up about idle concessions, it's quite a narrative, a story worth exploring. Definitely something to delve into. To utilize the terminology that is currently most comprehensible, as it is commonly believed, you forget about exploration and only go for exploitation. And what isn't exploited is quote unquote idle. And the messages that have been given by the government, by the state in general, because Congress has played a significant role in strengthening this narrative, that of idle concessions and therefore they must be worked on, is something that has been established and which must be refuted with technical yet understandable language to make them understand the cycle of mining exploitation in our country and how large companies carry it out. In that particular context, it is evident that prolonged political inaction carries significant implications for our nation's economy. Since everything came to a stop in the pursuit of high environmental and labor standards, all that was supposedly seeking them was also put on hold. And everything that comes associated with that, what it has resulted in is that all of that detachment from the state has been occupied by the criminal economies. I insist on what I said earlier. Every space is occupied, and the national territory, when we talk about mining, let's see what percentage is occupied by criminal economies and what is truly by responsible mining exploitation, sustainable, and that generates that trust in investors to come to the country without clear rules. The absence of security or legal stability brings about a perpetual threat of state intervention, leading to the paralysis of key components. Projects, I don't think much progress can be made. That is why there has to be a profound turnaround that the new government is obliged, it is not an option, it is obliged to implement.
How can we achieve minimal consensus on that line you propose, Rosa? Because definitely, as has already been anticipated, we are going to have a next Congress that will represent also addressing the factual interests of illegal and informal mining, particularly those individuals who choose to remain in the informal sector. Our focus is not on individuals seeking formalization. To be formalized, including the crafts. And within this ongoing process of not approving the MAPE law, what would bring some order? Regarding that, where do you find yourself based on your experience, not only legal but also political? Is there a way that we can establish a fundamental agreement regarding this matter in order to push this initiative ahead? Because mind you, the IPE, the Peruvian Institute of Economics, has pointed out that if we do not take advantage of this 30-year cycle we are going to have with a high demand not only for copper, lithium, cadmium, and important elements, critical minerals for the energy transition, then Peru will miss the train of opportunity.
Another lost chance in our past to elevate a nation rich in potential. Let's not allow history to repeat itself and miss out on empowering our country. Well, Cesar, I believe that we have a dilemma that states have posed, which I think should be dismantled and extinguished. One should not choose between dialogue and authority. They must necessarily coexist. Well, we are listening to the candidates present those two extremes, the hard line and strong authority versus the path of dialogue and making concessions. Well, when they are not incompatible, and I insist, they are obliged to coexist. In that sense, there are two obligations that arise for the new government and that I hope we hear from the candidates to prevent criminal capture completely. Totally with a firm hand, but it must go hand in hand with managing social conflict with institutionalism. If this is not achieved and the candidates do not present us with alternatives that make these two paths converge, I believe this will result in a further prolongation of the crisis, and consequently we can be almost certain that another opportunity will have been missed. The minerals are there waiting. Not only should they not be exploited, but rather I think they should be the driving force propelling our country towards the much needed and long delayed development we aspire for.
Now, on the other hand, we know, as Cesar rightly said, among the informal ones, we have the radicals who are not going to formalize, and we're going to set them aside because we already know that with them, it's a hardline approach. We have those who want to formalize, right? I'm left with the feeling that, on the one hand, governments haven't given it a sufficiently good offer to formalize properly so they can do it in a correct manner. And on the other hand, we have firm hand, right? So how do we make it so that it can, in order to establish an understanding, we should acknowledge that the primary concern for informal miners is typically related to territory issues. However, the Ministry of Energy and Mines has been working towards reforms. A geocatmin, it has a whole system where it has places that it could parcel out and it could start, obviously. Indeed, ensuring formalization, integrity, and adherence to best practices is crucial for success. Begin creating a strategy at a national level concerning this subject, because the small miners as well as the medium miners also benefit from it. Could be hand in hand with a good mining project from the government. They could move forward. The issue is that they don't want to enter into concessions with mining companies because these are already concessions that are being worked on and have paid a lot of money to be there, and it's already a project. But rather go to places that the government has already identified as good locations as well. Therefore, they can work on expanding their initiatives, correct?
Yes, and we are facing a problem that is quite Peruvian. The populace is resistant to moving, and this resistance stems from a deep-seated cultural conviction that they are meant to stay right where they currently reside. Let's not forget the issues we face, like houses encroaching on ravines and settlements in high-risk areas. It's important to address these challenges. We have an unaddressed cultural issue that is not being acknowledged. Disappointing. I have not heard that before. The cultural approach that must necessarily have this focus on relocation. However, an issue ingrained in our culture is the reluctance to commit. Those who are unwilling to commit typically have their reasons for doing so. Everything for himself. There is a huge resistance, for example, to paying taxes. Huge.
80% of Peruvians.
Yes, the taxpayer does not see any tangible tax advantage despite the changes in the law. Those who pay that 20% don't have public education, don't have public health, don't have public comfort.
That government thing, the government's marketing has been terrible.
Always and continues to do so. And in this campaign, it's unfortunately worse. In this scenario, they are unwilling to provide traceability for minerals or finances, which raises concerns about accountability and transparency. They don't want intervention from SUNAT or the regulators, so the heavy hand is necessarily imposed there. The control with the benefit I already said on this show. If there isn't a very firm hand with a sustained interdiction in place, once again, these are not just for display. This is continuous prevention. You are intruding into a space that is not yours, and I am proposing an alternative. Therefore, it is necessary to proceed with confiscation. There must be imprisonment. Every necessary sanction must be implemented as you have been presented with an alternative that you are choosing to reject. Therefore, leniency cannot be allowed under any circumstances. And the extension of the reinfo is also a very serious problem because it has become a shield for informality. A shield to keep things as they are, maintaining the current state of affairs, maintaining the status quo. Of the status quo, so much so that I believe that reinfo is no longer a registry that seeks formalization, but rather a registry for informality. Is
Excellent.
it right? Reinfo stands for orderly enrollment in a structured but informal way. It signifies registration in advanced circumstances.
Rosa Bartra, we appreciate your presence here with us. Your way of approaching problems is always interesting. And well, we will continue talking to see what happens with our beloved Peruvian mining industry.
We also trust that the candidates understand the significant role mining activities play in the development of our country. No extremes. No extreme whatsoever. Neither repression nor romanticizing the illegal economy, the illegal mining, because it is no longer illegal mining, it is rather a criminal economy. So neither romanticize here nor offer a heavy hand, because neither of the two paths are viable. They must converge.
Thank you very much. Well, let's go to a commercial break and we'll be right back. Within the America mining sector, we are connected with José Gonzáles, located in Wall Street, New York. Jose, could you please share how you are currently doing?
Great seeing you again, Jorge. Always a pleasure to be in your company.
Well, Jose, 2025 has been a more positive year for global mining, contributing to the income of mining companies and their return on investment. How have the principal shares of the mining companies been behaving across the global stock exchanges? In Latin America?
We have information from mining.com, which ranks the 50 largest mining companies in the world at the end of the third quarter. We are looking forward to receiving your fourth quarter consolidated report. However, the third quarter financial results provide a good indication. The total market capitalization for the 50 biggest mining corporations worldwide had exceeded $1,900 billion. $70 billion. That amounts to nearly $2 trillion, marking an increase of $700 billion by the year 2025. This valuation has exceeded the value they had reached 3 years ago. On the one hand, we have the weakness of American gold, which is generating superior returns in commodities and in the capitalization of the companies involved. And what they refer to as an increment, a significant rise within the Platinum Group companies, besides the increases noted in the gold and silver. This has generated extraordinary returns in the shares of companies like, for example, Core Mining, which increased its value 6 times. Fresnillo de Peñoles increased its value by 305%. Regarding rare earths, Lynas Rare Earths in Perth, Australia, rose 280%, and MP Materials, the Las Vegas company in which the American government invested, 500%. The only Chinese rare earth company listed on a stock exchange, China Northern Rare Earths, rose 160%. On the other hand, with the consolidation has continued, as we said in past programs, and BHP and Rio Tinto, which are the 2 companies with the highest capitalization exceeding $100 billion. 3 more companies have joined them. There are now 5 mining companies that have that level of valuation globally. On the other hand, there is the case of BHP, which wanted to acquire Anglo American, and as we know, he lacked the ability to do it a second time and now relies on his internal capabilities to accomplish the task. Zijin Mining is a diversified Chinese company that has risen. It has increased its value by 61% and is getting closer and closer to the valuation of Rio Tinto. Southern Copper of Grupo Mexico, based in Peru, has risen 38%. And Southern is looking to expand its operations in Mexico while also expanding its operations in Peru, which is going to be generating value. Newmont and Freeport have also experienced quite important returns. Freeport and Glencore have experienced returns that were below what was anticipated, and yet they continue to have values above their historical values. In Latin America, according to Bloomberg, gold and copper have generated significant returns in companies in Colombia, Mexico, and Peru, and Chile. The index of mining companies operating across Latin America has yielded returns amounting to 64% since the beginning of this year, with Colombian miners up to 87% and Peñoles Industries up to 19%. In Peru, notable companies include Volcan and Sociedad Minera, Corona. Not only have there been returns in stocks, but also in net profits. Southern is anticipating a 15% rise this current year. Buenaventura anticipates 23% this year. And then there are smaller mining operations such as Minera Outland. Grupo Mexico, which we have already mentioned, and Vale in Brazil should continue to see positive results, and the outlook for the coming year looks promising. Is that these rallies will continue?
Certainly, this is the perspective for major corporations benefiting from substantial returns. However, it's also true that hedge funds, the fast-paced players in the market, are aware of this potential. Hedge funds, known for their diverse investment strategies, are also venturing into commodities in search of similar profitable returns. Of course, when one hears about hedge funds, they remember the subprime crisis of 2008 and panic sets in. But in any case, where is the ultimate destination that these funds are pointing towards?
Hedge funds like Cesar typically focus on macro plays and strategies to drive their investments. They start from the macroeconomic variables and look to land investments. There has been a recent change in investable assets, with investment banks eliminating commodity trading desks. This has impacted fund behavior in the market, resulting in a shift in investment strategies seen today. Trying to compete directly against major companies such as Trafigura and Vitol, specific commodity traders have distinct advantages over hedge funds, such as Val Valley Valiasni, offering unique investment opportunities and specialized expertise, and Jane Global Cube, Jane Street, who are just beginning to put capital into energy-related assets and are considering making direct investments in mining assets within what they refer to as raw materials are still available. There are funds that invest in mining companies, but they don't want to be paid in air, but rather in offtakes for raw materials. And what they point out is that hedge funds can participate in the modern-day gold rush known as the information era. With access to increased information, they are able to manage physical assets more actively, either by accumulating them or storing them in inventory to mitigate market fluctuations. They can experience returns that draw near to or look like those generated by the specialized companies themselves. Indeed, investment funds such as Citadel are actively acquiring tangible assets to increase productivity. The acquisition of Paloma Natural Gas, which it has already renamed Apex Natural Gas, was completed. Flex Power has acquired energy projects in Europe, and the trend will continue with them investing and competing with specialists and the energy and mining companies themselves.
Special thanks go out to José Gonzáles for sharing the significant news he brought back from New York City. And all these topics will certainly be covered in Rumbo Minero. Thank you, José.
A pleasure.
Well, let me mention that Rumbo Minero magazine, the leading magazine, not only in Peru, but in South America. www.rumbo Minero, and you can access all the information for free by downloading it from the website. All the information from the magazine, invaluable international and national information about everything related to mining. And if you are a supplier or want to become one, advertise. I recommend it in the magazine leader. And now, we are heading into a short commercial pause, after which we will return to the program. Currently, we are in our studios interviewing Jorge Soto Yen, who serves as the president of the Mining Engineering Chapter at the College of Engineers in Lima. How are you, Jorge?
Hello. I am grateful to Rumbo Minero for extending the
thank
invitation.
you for being here. Let's get straight to the issue that concerns us. The Premier recently declared that illegal miners have entered the Conga area. When before, the anti-mining NGOs and everyone told us, right, that it's an area that shouldn't be touched, and zones and millions of things we have heard completely false. However, the current concern is centered on how we are perceived by others, correct?
Indeed, more than actual concern, I believe it is the complete lack of action that we have experienced. I believe on the part of the Peruvian state and the rest of the institutions, really, because that push from all of us has been missing, I think, so that the mining operations that we, the entirely formal Peruvians, have consistently carried out can finally implement that necessary transition. Unfortunately, it is truly regrettable, and this brings about a sense of worry. What will be said internationally? What will be the future vision for 2030 and 2050 about what we have with these invasions, and that we are not going to do anything? When it comes to that issue, I believe the Peruvian state needs to stand strong and consistent in that regard. Continue the project and ensure that mining companies adhere to their standard practices and procedures for seamless progress. The formality that will lead us toward a positive direction for the country. But if we, unfortunately, if we don't all put ourselves together, I mean institutions, because the College of Engineers is going to speak out strongly on this, because this leads us to something that could be more affected in the upcoming projects we have. We have here 30 important projects, a portfolio where by 2025 we must reach more than 5,100 million. However, the expectation is for continuous expansion, potentially acting as a catalyst, that these projects can be paralyzed. We don't want it logically, but it is possible. Failure to address this issue would be detrimental.
Jorge, that weakness of the state that you perceive is also directly related to the regulatory framework, as pointed out. The High Commissioner for Combating Illegal Mining, General Rodolfo Garcia Esquere, that is to say that we need a much closer coordination among all the powers of the state in order to fight against it?
Yes. Look, that's what we've always been discussing. But if not, there is a regulatory framework that one has. But there are two decrees. It is required by law that I once discussed two significant challenges that were presented to us by the Ministry of Justice back then, specifically those two executive decrees. It's required, with which mining is exploited, illegal and informal in this regard, and nothing can be done. I am requesting right here that those two specific decree laws ought to be completely revoked and nullified. We are talking about 1835. I think we have it on screen, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it a decree law or a supreme rule?
No, actually there exists a supreme decree, and there is a decree law issued by the Ministry of Mines, and another one from the Ministry of Justice, which granted every single facility to the informal mining so that it wouldn't be stopped in any aspect, right? Those two should, be completely canceled. And that would lead us to also consider that the state entities, the individuals they are looking for, or that we attempt to eradicate this, negative force, this plague, due to the fact that it drives us towards underdevelopment, which is something we wish to avoid. It truly has to be completely annulled. We should start there because that would give us the solid structure underlying institutions and their strength that are watching against illegal mining can access the rest of the regulatory framework. If we fail to act and address them, we will inevitably stay on the same destructive course. So it's crucial to take action now.
It is rather peculiar that we have listened to members of Congress from the left discussing idle or unused concessions. And then, precisely after that, this whole situation with Conga arises, doesn't it? So it seems as if they have just begun, and that is, isn't it true that significant projects go through various phases? You are quite aware of that, aren't you? And many times they require large investments and they do the phases, which is why the investment is very large. So of course, saying that the corner over there isn't being used, so I have to use it. That isn't legal, right? The concept of idle concessions does not apply here. However, some congressmen recently discussed it in relation to miners not receiving them. This notion of idle concessions is absent in reality. Do you think there's any coordination, any similarity between this?
No, I observe that there is a coordination with these members of Congress who are not aligned with Peru. I mean, because when someone is looking for the development of the nation, one shouldn't look at what political party it is. And it truly causes me a great deal of sorrow that they hold this particular line of thinking, which is completely unhelpful. In mining concessions, changes were made. On average, it takes 30 years for a mining project to move from financing decisions by the company to procedural approvals by the state. This lengthy process is necessary for successful project completion. However, the negative lesson learned from Conga provides valuable insight. If we persist on the current course, all our concessions will be taken over, which is something we cannot permit. Let's avoid that scenario at all costs. But there is something compelling that we need to see. The concessions, as they are currently given to informal miners who preach, saying that if they don't have the concession, they cannot exploit 72% of them. Most of the territory is owned by small-scale miners who are predominantly natural persons. Many of them do not want to formalize because the business logically is not to formalize, and have 100, 200 miners working on the concession. That is what has been taken away. And to finalize the issue of idle concessions, technically there is no such thing as an idle concession. The concessions are being studied daily, monthly, and annually. Otherwise, how can we determine if a project will be viable or not? Upon beginning work at a mining concession, a portion is typically extracted for initial study. If the findings prove to be promising, further exploration can be undertaken. You have to continue expanding the study process. That does not determine the lifespan of a mining operation. We cannot drop it. People who do not have, or congressmen who do not have the necessary knowledge, go to the extreme of saying that they are idle concessions. I would inquire with all of them, the majority of whom possess personal concessions, if they have started the process of at least following a regular procedure to obtain an authorization for an operation, for an exploration or something. They haven't done it. It's simple, because it suits them to remain informal. That's it. That's why I say we have to work in defense. I will always say it from the perspective of the mining engineering chapter, that we have to work in defense of formality here and anywhere, whether in the Congress of the Republic or in any of these situations. It is imperative that we consistently remind ourselves of the necessity of maintaining a robust structure in our country to support the growth we have mapped out for the period up to the year 2050.
There is no doubt, Jorge, that in the political electoral debate looking towards the 2026 process, mining is going to be an extremely important axis of discussion. It is crucial to identify the variables to be addressed on that front, as we are dealing with issues of informality and concessions. In summary, understanding the essential factors is key. I am slightly departing from our usual belief with Jorge, the fear that has always been present here. Perhaps the mining activity would once again be... The piñata is now a popular activity where everyone takes turns hitting it. However, the problem has become so widespread, especially in informal settings, where it is no longer seen as just a fun tradition. The people, the majority of Peruvians, are convinced of the importance of mining, but how will that be resolved so that it serves the well-being of the rest of the country? What are those parts of the axis of the mining discussion that you believe are essential, that we cannot stop discussing?
I think we must carry on. Well, it's a very contradictory point sometimes. However, it is essential to consider candidates running for Congress and understand the importance of adhering to the guidelines regulating mining development and its processes, industry mean. Our task is to guide all the members of Congress to create laws that have a beneficial impact. It is essential to ensure that these laws are viewed positively in society. Mining. But I believe that here we must have two important things for those who are going to the Congress of the Republic. We need to define and approve this MAPI law in this or the next term because it seems quite difficult, and that would be one of the important points. And secondly, create a new regulation specifically tailored for small-scale and artisanal mining. The current regulation may not cater to the smallest operations, so adjustments are needed to ensure its effectiveness. For those eager to progress with the plan, I believe this will be a crucial factor to consider. To do something for Congress, they would have to do it that way. And another one of the points, finally, that I want to note here with the part of those who are going to go to the Congress of the Republic is the analysis that must be done from of regional view. If we look, almost all mining is in the regional part. 78%, almost half of the investment in Peru is concentrated in 8 regions. This implies a level of economic activity, a certain amount of exports, and notable progress in human development. It means by the population number it has. Arequipa, more than 1,200,000 inhabitants. Ancash, close to 1 million inhabitants. And if one starts adding up the initial 8 geographical regions, we will consequently have approximately 6 or 8 million of our Peruvian compatriots present there. And mining is making it so that, thanks to the mining potential we have, and thanks to formal mining, we are moving away from those development indices that were very low. Moquegua is one of them. Arequipa, Ancash. So we have to keep working in that direction so that they continue to grow. Many congressmen are required to perform a certain necessary job as part of their responsibilities. In these regions, 5 fundamental things. The communications and transportation part, right, of the entire mining sector, the administrative part, connectivity, education, which is the second part. Most importantly, cheers with all the income that is being generated, which is extraordinary. We should take advantage of those points. With those 3, I stick to them as the main ones.
Now to finish, hey Jorge, what do you think of the, pardon me, could you specify what those crucial points are? Not under this current transitional government, certainly not involving this minister, rather in the subsequent directive that we are going to be receiving, don't you think so? What specific areas or milestones have you covered throughout your entire experience within the mining sector? We previously discussed the MAPE legislation, correct? It requires some restructuring. However, let's shift away from this lengthy subject for now. What other points are important for the next government? Regarding mining?
Look, if we really want to give that necessary impulse to the mining industry, what we need is the procedural part of the Ministry of Energy and Mining. Elementary, there is...
Should all of this be returned to the Ministry of Energy and Mines?
Look, I've always been one of those people who has been preaching this. For me, it should be in the Ministry of Energy and Mines.
No updates from Departments of Culture or Environment can be expected.
The experience has truly been had. And remember that before moving on to the rest of the institutions, everything was approved in a maximum of 1 year. Now we are talking about 4, 5, 6 years for all the institutions. So that is a crucial point. If it's difficult from one point of view, then we have to reduce all this red tape and it can be done. Apart from utilizing a single window, there exist other crucial procedures that can reduce processing time significantly, solely requiring effective management. This is the crucial aspect at hand. And the second point, I have always been surprised that the Ministry of Energy and Mines, being the most important entity in the country in terms of investment and exports, we genuinely lack an infrastructure capable of being dynamic and significantly more effective and efficient, and there is greater efficiency in the work. The growth of various institutions has been notable. The Environment Ministry exhibited the most rapid growth, a positive development. SENAS also experienced significant growth, showcasing promising progress. The Ministry of Energy and Mines is desperately in need of a significant boost for improvement. This is crucial for our overall progress and development. Mr. President, a good, what is his title? Minister, you must determine that the Ministry of Energy and Mines is genuinely the principal axis upon which this entire country turns. Consequently, the underlying infrastructure is absolutely vital for successfully moving forward with every single project in the nation.
Well, we have had the pleasure of having with us Jorge Soto Yen, who is the president of the Mining Engineering Chapter of the College of Engineers of Peru. We sincerely thank you.
Thanks to you all.
Commercial break. Before the commercial break, we are going now with Iván Arenas and his segment on mining and society. Please proceed, Iván.
Dear friends, we have received the news that Trump, the government of the United States under President Donald Trump, has sent to Congress a document to convert Peru into a preferred partner, not NATO. That includes many things, but fundamentally it includes geopolitics. A lot of geopolitics. As you are already aware, our current discussions primarily revolve around the geopolitical aspects of minerals, with a focus on 3 key minerals: copper, lithium, and others. But also cobalt, and Peru has copper. It also has lithium, but primarily contains copper. A crucial element for the 4th industrial revolution, the energy transition. Trump, therefore, is concerned with 2 things. With copper that he does not have, clearly the lines of supply appears can be given. And Peru has a lot of copper. In the past years, Peru has been significantly impacted by Chinese investments, indicating a noticeable influence on the country's development. The United States, therefore, is concerned about what is happening in the country, and hence that quite rather significant in the United States of America. What is coming in the next few years? Probably investment. Being a partner of the United States and NATO involves more than just trade agreements. It often includes military alliances and a variety of other significant responsibilities. Keep in mind that historically Chile served as the partner, loosely speaking, of the United States, but now that role is being taken over by Peru. We have copper, don't forget. We must not stray from this mineral and mention it almost always. Over the next few weeks, we are going to keep conversing about the complex geopolitics surrounding copper. Minerals geopolitics, a closer look into their significance and implications. Donald Trump wants with Peru, and what kind of relationship he seeks. When the country has a lot of copper and has China, fundamentally as one of the countries and commercial partners. We will be discussing this and more in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Well, reaching the end of the program, Cesar, what Rosa Bartra mentions to us is forceful against illegal mining. But the political aspect is also a concerning matter, right? Which we have already brought up and cautioned about. Because the campaigns now commence during the summer months, right? And let's see, I think that conversely, what is truly concerning me and occupying my thoughts is the subject of violence during this political campaign. We have elements like illegal mining and money from illegal mining, and we have already seen the tentacles and everything that has happened. They could run a dangerous campaign, couldn't they?
The crux of the matter, Jorge, is, as Rosa Bartra says, to restore the rule of the state, that is, to strengthen it. If that is not a primary discussion, what are we discussing about specific public policies if the state? Is there no method to control, to arrange, to direct, to depict, to conceptualize? That's why I find your statement interesting regarding the need to make both dialogue and authority coexist. It's not just about saying, yeah, hey, let's beat up the illegals, but also how we engage in dialogue with that small segment that likely struggles to formalize and integrate itself into that crucial social dialogue that Peru so desperately needs.
That's right. And also, of course, what José Gonzáles mentions about the mining companies of 2025 and the investment risks for mining. Very interesting. Just like Donald Trump, copper, and Peru, regarding which Trump has recently begun to speak about Peru. We will rarely have to analyze with a magnifying glass.
The mining geopolitics, what we talked about with Rosa Bartra, he's interested in rare earths. He's interested in critical minerals, and he has realized that Peru is an important player. It can be an important player.
Furthermore, in a neighborhood where there aren't many, there is a small contingent of the left that is not very fond of mining. Isn't it incredible? Peru may uncover a fantastic opportunity if it realizes the potential this place has to offer.
Now, looking at the lithium triangle, we need to pay attention to the new right-wing rulers instead of the left-wing ones who can enhance their power within that region. This geopolitical situation is truly fascinating.
And also the issue that 20 times more copper needs to be produced for what's coming. So the one who accumulates copper is going to be the one who manages his destiny a little, right?
Right.
All right. As usual, I am very passionate about the mining topic. My name is Jorge Leon, and along with Cesar Campos, thank you very much,
Thank
Cesar.
you.
We have developed, as always, your program, Rumbo Minero. We look forward to seeing you next weekend on this same channel.